How many of you guys have ever woken up on the wrong side of the bed? Yeah, it sucks. Your alarm clock goes off, you don't know what's going on, and you end up being a bit of a grouch the rest of the day. Well, it turns out, unsurprisingly, there's an app for that. Using the accelerometer in your phone, you can track where you are in your sleep cycle, and then this app will wake you up at the best time. Now, this is just one example of many of how sensor devices can help us improve our lives. Now, in 2008, the number of things connected to the internet exceeded the number of people on Earth. And this number is growing. These things, they're not just smartphones and tablets, but they're objects around us that are increasingly able to talk to each other and talk to the internet. Now, with these connected devices, they're reshaping all of these different industries, from healthcare to auto manufacturing, to business, to science, everything. And our bodies, our objects are all becoming connectivity platforms. We have these devices that are tracking our lives. They're giving us access to information we've never had access to before. In 2014, there will be 400 million sensor devices out there and a $4 billion market. Now, this gives us a lot of data. This gives us so much data. What do we do with all of it? Every day, we're generating exabytes of data. Now, even storing this much data is a problem, let alone knowing how to make sense of it. Today, we can do something akin to quantitative storytelling, where we can take the output of our devices and look at charts and graphs. And if you're a geek like me, this is pretty cool. But this isn't what most people want. Most people want to know what's the take-home message. And so we can look at that by trying to understand how to make this data actionable. What are the problems you're trying to solve, and what are the questions you're trying to ask? People don't want data. People want concrete, actionable suggestions about how to change their lives. Now, to get some insight into this, it's useful to look at the data ecosystem. So the data ecosystem includes the user, connected data sources, wireless connectivity protocols, and ways to store, access, analyze data, and then ultimately feed that back to give user actionable items. Okay, so why would a user want to collect, say, health data? For someone like my dad, he collects blood glucose data for disease management. You might also want to collect health data to help improve your sleep, to lose weight, to help you train for a race. There are many reasons, and there are many devices out there for tracking health data. If you go to the Quantified Self website, they have a catalog of over 450 different devices and applications. Now, this is about tracking on the personal level, but we can do tracking on a global level as well. When you're typing in search queries into Google, they can track ones that are related to flu symptoms and use these to predict and localize outbreaks of the flu. And this is even better than the Center for Disease Control can do. Other companies like Asmopolis are taking this a step further, building geolocalized sensors that signal when and where people use their asthma inhalers. We have an explosion of data out there, but the limiting factor isn't access to this data, but having the right tools to interpret it. Now, we can build our own tools in order to do interesting things with the data. Ultimately, we want to access it, aggregate it, and find other ways to process the data. There are other platforms out there like Cosm that allow you to take your connected sensor devices and put them through their website to control physical devices in the real world. Now, how many of you have noticed that your mood changes with the weather? Wouldn't it be cool if the lighting in your house could change based on how much sunlight exposure you've got? That would be a great way to kick away the winter blues. Now, this kind of thing is possible today, and sensors of the future are allowing us to do even cooler things. The next wave of sensors is increasingly wearable, both aesthetically and practically. It's analyzing data from, say, your bloodstream in real time, and things like Lab on a Chip allow you to take the power of healthcare and put it onto your smartphone. And these technologies are turning things like the Star Trek medical tricorder from science fiction to science. Companies like Scanadu and CellScope are building attachments for the cell phone to give you a triage clinic that you can put in your pocket. Now, with the rise of the maker and hardware movements, it's becoming easier and easier to make your own sensors, and crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo allow you to turn these projects into businesses. And it's not just about physical tools. There are also a number of communities built around these things as well. In the Bay Area, we have a censored meetup and a hardware startup meetup where people get together to collaborate and learn and talk about their sensor projects. Now, I'd like to leave you guys with a challenge. I want you to think about what problems you face in your everyday life and which of these you might be able to address if you had access to the right data. Maybe it's how to wake up on the right side of the bed, or maybe it's something nobody's ever thought of before. We know that the future is going to be censored. The question is, what will you build?